Hi there. Hey Ben, how's it going?
Hi, good, thanks. It's going well. Happy to be here.
Yeah, yeah, pleasure to have you guys on today. We've been following Superset for a while, so I really appreciate you taking the time to join our stablecoin webinar today. Just for a little intro of myself, and then I'll let you take the stage from there. I'm Paula Petit. I'm the VP of Strategy and Growth here at Range. For any of those new to Range, we're building infrastructure for stablecoin payments and digital asset treasuries, and work with teams like Circle, Stellar, Solana, and we help monitor their assets across chains, transaction risks, and help them enforce treasury policies. So that's my little snippet there. But I will let you give a much more in-depth intro of yourself. Yeah, would love just you personally if you can introduce yourself.
Sure. So I'm Ben Haslam. I'm CTO and co-founder of Superset Finance. And what we're building at Superset is this brand new architecture to create the most capital efficient trading venue for stablecoins that are deployed across multiple different chains. And we do that by using a new hub and spoke architecture to completely eliminate liquidity fragmentation.
Awesome. Perfect. Then thank you so much for that. Yeah, I would love if you could even take a time to kind of even dive in deeper on, Superset's offerings and, who it might be relevant to and, what kind of problems you guys are solving.
Sure. So, well, the core idea is that if you look at a lot of stablecoin trading on chain, and this isn't just stablecoins actually, but we build it specifically for stablecoins because they're the most acutely affected by this issue.
Hmm.
Um, but if you look at a lot of cross-chain assets, and when I'm to say cross-chain, I just mean an asset that exists on multiple chains. So that's like USDT0, USDC, but also a lot of other assets such as like wrap BTC, for example. It will
Hmm.
be tradable in multiple different chains, but in a separate DEX on each one. So like
Hmm.
Uniswap here, Ethereum here, Camelot here. And what that effectively means is that the markets for that asset are just split up in each chain. So it's fragmented. And that
Hmm.
basically causes issues because someone on one chain can only access the liquidity that's directly on that chain, and they're completely locked out from everything else. So they can
Hmm.
only trade against whatever exists, the small amount of reserves that are on that chain. Means that it's basically a lot less efficient. It means that they're going to
Yeah.
get more slippage on trades, inconsistent price everywhere, and ultimately smaller trades that are actually possible.
Hmm.
And we see this as a big problem that's stopping a lot of institutional proper FX trading actually coming on chain.
Hmm.
So in order to realize those like potential, we need to fix that issue. And
Hmm.
so we've been working for the last 2 years or so building the Superset protocol, which we say virtualizes liquidity across multiple chains into one single virtual liquidity pool, and then allows anyone to trade on that virtual liquidity pool rather than the fragmented pool of the chain that they actually might be on. And that means that now everyone is trading against a total liquidity, much better rates, less slippage, and a consistent price
Hmm.
everywhere.
Nice. Yeah, exactly. That makes sense. And making the whole system more efficient because, yeah, this fragment liquidity is just not a way for the systems to move forward. So you co-founded it with your co-founder, Neil Staunton, I believe. Can you lead me
Yes.
through kind of what got you to decide to kind of co-found this, co-found Superset?
Sure. So I actually met Neil in a previous company. We were both working in a
Mm-hmm.
cybersecurity company. And at the time, we were working on quantum safe cryptography, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually built a quantum safe like wallet for Ethereum, which would
Mm-hmm.
apply post quantum signatures on top of the normal Ethereum signatures. Um, and at the time, the quantum threat, we didn't see it as the kind of most pressing issue facing crypto,
Mm-hmm.
which is funny because now it actually is a bit more of an issue. But this was a few years ago. Um, and we basically decided that it would be better to use our time to try and go into the stablecoin and payments area because we thought that was where crypto had the most promise. And it's also where we saw this new issue of fragmentation, which was actually stopping a lot of liquidity coming on chain and actually being useful and doing what crypto was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so we basically decided to both leave that job. We founded Superset had a different name at the start, but started Superset and initially kind of jumped into the cross-chain space. We were doing quite a few things initially, working with different teams, doing multi-chain deployments and working on a few projects like that. And while talking to people, we basically realized that, yeah, this fragmentation problem is the number one issue that new issuers face, because they'll deploy their token onto multiple chains, and then the next step after that is they want to deploy markets on each of those chains, and they'll immediately think, oh, okay, how do we allocate all our cash now? So we put like 50% here, 20% here, 20% here, so on. And then they have to pay market makers to constantly keep the price in line between those and effectively arbitrage, which ultimately just costs them and the end users. And it was a constant battle for them. And this basically especially hits like new issuers who don't have a huge amount of TVL to start with, because they know that they need to launch on multiple chains nowadays. Everyone does, in order to reach a large audience or market. That means they are going to have to face this fragmentation problem. And so we pretty quickly realized this was the kind of missing piece that we had to try and build. And so, yeah, I'm the CTO, so I head up the technical part. In previous jobs, obviously, did cryptography in the last one, but also I've worked a lot in DEX integrations and all sorts of node operations. And so have this experience of kind of tying security, AMMs, and now cross-chain together into what is ultimately this one role, which I think I've managed to take bits from all of those in order to basically figure out how to build an architect Superset protocol, along with our team, obviously. I definitely didn't do it alone.
Yeah, of course. The teamwork makes it work. At what point do you feel like that came about? Did that kind of become clear that you guys were going to focus on this area?
So yeah, we were kind of thinking about it and putting together ideas and building, like iterating on a white paper for a while. But it really kicked off when we went to San Francisco in, I think it was January of last year for the Orange DAO, the accelerator program. So we applied for that, and then we went in January, and that basically gets you ready to pitch your idea to investors, which they bring in for you. And it was really, really good. I definitely recommend a lot of people to go for it, because they really like basically make you hone your idea, figure out exactly what the product market fit is, and then put together like a pitch deck and practice for interviews as well as the actual pitch itself, and then actually bring the investors and just put you in front of them, which is a bit nerve-wracking. It was actually Neil who did it, not me, so I had it easy, really.
But you succeeded in the end. I believe you guys raised. Yeah, I believe you guys raised your seed via that. Was there any specific portion that excited the investors the most, or was it kind of what we've already discussed, or was there any other area that really got these investors interested?
I think, to be fair, like Orange DAO was really helpful because it made us like figure out that exactly like what was the thing that was going to get investors most interested. So at the start, the like vision for the company was a bit different, but then it was going there and then talking to all the other teams and the people who ran it to basically figure out, no, this is the message that sells. And the message at the time was, let me actually remember, like make any stablecoin as liquid as Tether. Because obviously that's like basically what everyone wants to be, right? There's a lot of new stables launching right now, like both USD and non-USD. But they all want to be in the position that Tether or USDC are in right now, which is having buckets load of liquidity on all these chains. So they basically don't need to worry about the fragmentation issue. It's everyone else that does.
Yes, with the much smaller market caps. Okay, and you're helping solve and helping, figure out that long tail, so it's just not the guys at the top, which makes sense. And I guess, you've also said that, execution quality matters far more than yield incentive for stablecoin pairs. Can you unpack that a bit more for kind of any institutions who are listening in or issuers?
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, the fundamental idea with Superset is to get the absolute best execution. And the only way to do that is to combine the entire market into just one pool. So you get basically economy of scale with it. So users will get better execution, which means less slippage on trades if they're trading against the largest amount possible. And by combining liquidity on multiple chains into one place, then you get that. And that ultimately then feeds back to LPs, because by allowing users to do larger trades on what is really the same amount of liquidity across multiple chains, the LPs end up getting more fees, because there's literally just there's more use per unit of liquidity, because the liquidity is never inactive, because if they put liquidity into Superset on one chain, it will still be used for trades happening on the other chains. And B, literally just by allowing for larger trades, it means that there are more fees for the LPs. And so this was our driving thesis, is that by literally just making it more capital efficient, it will bring the liquidity in the LPs. And we think you have to do something like that long term, rather than short term incentives and that kind of thing, because those will inevitably run out. And when they do, everyone will lose. We've seen that time and time again.
We've seen it many times before.
We actually do have incentives per chain, but it's entirely driven by the trading on that chain. And so if you're an LP and you say put your liquidity on one chain at the start, and then you see that there's a lot more trading on another chain, that does give you an incentive to go to that chain, move your position to that chain. But that's basically through an additional fee, which is proportional to the volume on a given chain. But
that makes sense.
The majority of the trading fee that you get will be from all the chains at once.
Okay, that makes sense. And hats off to you guys for kind of figuring that out as well. I think it was very invaluable for the space. And then I guess on how the whole system works, where do you guys draw the line between kind of Superset and existing intent-based or solver networks? And what's kind of structurally different on how you guys handle it and price discovery?
Okay, so that's a good question, because a lot of people ask it. I think ultimately we're not competing with solver networks and things like that, because they are generally using liquidity that's on those chains already. And so if you use a lot of solver networks CalSwap or something, they'll generally basically run an auction where people will try and fill a user trade using whatever liquidity they can find. Now, sometimes that is from their own inventory. And so that's a market maker who holds a lot of different tokens that they can use to fill trades at whatever rates they want. But the majority of the time, they just want to find liquidity on whatever chain that is. So if you're on Arbitrum, they'll just find liquidity on a DEX in Arbitrum. And that means that the user is ultimately going to get exactly the same slippage on those trades that they would have got if they just did it directly. It's just now, it's actually technically going to be worse, because the solver's going to take that cut as well. And so I think solvers are great for retail trades where it's just convenience. They're really convenient because you don't need to think about it. Someone just sorts it out for you. But the actual rate that you get is probably not going to be very good a lot of the time, because it's still using the liquidity that's on that chain. The liquidity has to come from somewhere. And for that reason, the larger you try and do it, the more fragmentation you're going to get, which is why I say it's really good for retail, where that fragmentation isn't really an issue, because you don't need to worry about slippage and that kind of thing. But if you're doing a really large trade, the slippage does become a problem. And in some ways, it's actually kind of easier to miss, because you're abstracted away. We actually see some horror stories sometimes. What was that story that came out a month ago, where someone did a solver trade and it routed it through a UniV2 AMM, and they got atrocious slippage. And I think they lost 40 million on a trade.
Oh my God.
To get very small. I might dig that up and send it to you later. But
okay, and you guys would help avoid that, essentially.
Well, I think ultimately, like a lot of modern DEXs now, we have slippage parameters, and so if it's going to go over a given amount of slippage, it will just cancel the trade in the first place. But I think basically, if you use solvers, because you're not the one directly interfacing with the DEX, a lot of that is easier to miss. But like, to be honest, solvers could integrate Superset. There's no reason why they can't do that. So we just want to create the most efficient like venue on chain for trading, but then we are completely open for that to be integrated by solvers and aggregators. We're actually talking to a lot of aggregators to then just get it down, because it will ideally become the best like source of liquidity on a lot of chains.
That makes sense. Yeah, interesting. And then I guess, you guys, liquidity virtualization is the core primitive. Can you actually walk me through a little bit on how the trades actually settle from end to end?
Sure. I have actually got a diagram that I usually use for this. Is it worth me
great.
sharing
Bring it on over.
Like, should I do that? Okay. Can I share my screen? Is that going to work?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. Try.
Let's see. It was the first share. Let's see. I don't know if yeah, share. I see a share screen.
It'll work. Let's give it a try. Go. Okay, can you see that?
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I can.
Cool.
Great.
Next question. Can I draw on it? Is this gonna work? I don't know if I can draw. That's fine. I think like just having a visual makes it so much easier to.
It does, yeah.
Visual. Okay, you can see my mouse, right?
Yes, we can.
Cool. Okay, so this is a kind of generic diagram showing the kind of structure of Superset. So you have these spoke chains at the top, and these are the ones that actually hold liquidity. So you can see each one has liquidity vaults. These are singleton vaults, which means there's 1 vault per token per chain. So for USDC, for example, there'll be 1 USDC vault on each chain that will hold all the USDC that Superset controls on that chain. And then we have the hub chain down here, which is, creating the virtual liquidity pools that has the virtual AMM on it. And so this acts as the source of truth. It keeps track of the amount of liquidity in all the spokes, and it's also where the trades are virtualized and users get their execution. So the way a trade actually happens, the user creates a swap request that's like your standard input to a DEX, so like token in, token out, amount in, minimum amount out, that kind of thing. And they'll send that to whichever chain. And when they do that, the token in will go into a liquidity vault. So say they're doing like USD to euro, I'll just keep it abstract. The USD will go into a liquidity vault here. And then a message gets sent to the hub chain. And when that hits the hub chain, it will virtualize that trade. And what that means is basically it will mint what we call mirror tokens in the hub chain, which then represent the asset that's gone in on chain A. And then it will put that through what we call the virtual AMM, which is actually just Uniswap v3 under the hood. So you have concentrated liquidity positions, multi-op swap, kind of thing. But basically the catch is all the positions on that virtual AMM are with virtual liquidity. So it's all representing liquidity that's on multiple chains, but it's all in this one place. So you can do operations and all of it at once. So it actually just does this Uniswap v3 trade using the virtual liquidity on the hub chain to then produce an output. And that output is now being, calculated using the reserves that are on multiple chains. And then the hub chain does a bit of accounting because it knows that some tokens are about to leave this chain, but then it sends response back to chain A. And that response is basically saying, this is the amount out for this trade. And then it will unlock that to the user. So they put liquidity into a vault on chain A and they get liquidity out from another vault. So it'll be the Euro vault on chain A that they get the liquidity out from. And so in that whole process, we're not actually bridging the tokens at all. It's just using the tokens that are already on chain A in this example. But it's creating like the market, so creating the price using these cross-chain messages.
That makes a lot of sense. No, yeah, go for it.
I mean, that was basically it.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, thank you. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I appreciate you walking us through, and you're the first person to bring a diagram and screen share. I think it makes it much more clear kind of under the hood how everything, so yeah, glad that worked, how everything occurs there. So thank you for sharing that. And then I guess when I'm trying to think what's the best, how do you decide which transport kind of to route through? And does that selection get exposed to the LP or does it stay invisible?
So just to clarify, by transport, do you mean like which standard? So like OFT or CCIP?
Yes,
Or...
CCIP, CCTP, OFT.
Yeah. So we support all three of those. So OFT is the layer 0 standard, CCIP is the chainlink one, and then Circle CCTP, which at the moment is just UTC, but more tokens on the way apparently. And so basically, to answer your question, it's not up to us; it's up to the issuer.
Okay.
So when we send tokens cross-chain, which obviously I didn't explain in that little example there, when you basically don't need to bridge anything to do a swap, because that just uses the tokens on the chain. But we do bridge tokens between chains when we do something called rebalancing, which is basically sending tokens from one chain to another in order to even out asymmetric flows. So if you imagine chain A, chain B, and a lot of people are buying USD from chain A, a lot of people are selling USD to chain B, that's going to cause a run out on chain A, and you're going to get a surplus on chain B. And so at some point, kind of counteract that. That's this idea called rebalancing. And so to do that, we just use whatever bridging mechanism that token already has, which is up to the issuer. And so I can give you some examples. For USDC, it will be CCTP, like the Circle one.
Yeah, of course.
For USDT 0, because that uses layer 0, it'll be an OFT transfer or OFT. And so we actually just use whatever that token itself uses. And we don't require any special privileges, because this is something people often ask us, like, if you're bridging these tokens around, don't you require like mint burn privileges or something? And the answer is no. We're using the bridging functionality that these token standards already give to anyone. So anyone can call these to send tokens around. It gets a bit technical sometimes, but it's completely permissionless. And so we're basically using that functionality. And these three standards actually do it in different ways, like different functionalities of where the token is getting burned and where it's getting minted and that kind of thing. But ultimately, the idea is the same, where you burn on the source chain and then mint on the destination chain. The exact way it gets implemented is different. So we've had to basically build integrations for every single one.
Interesting. And then I guess when it comes to rebalancing, how do you kind of keep the game theory honest? Like if adversarial actors kind of get involved?
Yeah, that's a good point as well. And the way we do that is that it's basically the entire state is on chain. The hub chain keeps track of the amount of tokens on all of the spokes, and it's always up to date because whenever anything happens, it goes via the hub chain. So the hub chain is always the first to know when some tokens are about to leave a given spoke.
Gotcha. Like a ledger.
And so with that, you can actually algorithmically determine how much should be rebalanced between two chains, because the hub chain knows the amount of liquidity on each spoke, but it can also figure out how much should be on each spoke. And it does that by basically counting up positions. And so quickly, I'll explain. If you're an LP and you want to deploy liquidity, you have to put that onto one chain or another, obviously, because the tokens have to exist somewhere. And so you do something similar to LPing into Uniswap, where you put in token A, token B, describe your price range, and then you'll get an NFT representing your position. You do that the same here, and that liquidity will physically be on one chain or another. And so when we have to rebalance, we can see which positions are on each chain. And so we can count up the positions that include a given token on a given chain to figure out how much of that token should be there according to where the LPs have put it. And then the hub always keeps track of how much liquidity is actually there, and then you'll determine the surplus or deficiency for that chain. And by doing that on two chains, you can figure out how much you should send between them. And so this is actually incentivized action. It's completely calculated on chain, so there's no way anyone can fudge it. But someone needs to actually initiate it, because you have to pay gas to do that. And so they basically would just scan it on the hub chain, and when they see an opportunity, tell it you need to rebalance these two tokens on this chain. This one token on these two chains. And it will just basically calculate it, send the messages to send those transfers using whichever transport mechanism that token happens to use. And then they'll get a reward for that, which will be proportional to the actual size of the rebalance. That's the idea.
Got you. Okay. Yeah, pretty cool kind of system you have there. And then I guess switching over to kind of to the institutional side, since we do have quite a few institutional listeners that come in as well that listen to this. So Superset's pitch is obviously you guys make on-chain FX possible. What does the institutional FX desk currently look like when they look at stablecoin pairs on-chain, and what changes would they expect to see if a unified market existed, or when it exists?
Okay. Yeah. So I think at the moment it's really in its fledgling stages. And so you have, fragmented markets, like I mentioned, that only really exist in any capacity on like Ethereum mainnet and a bit on Solana. And now we're seeing something on Canton, but that's not really DEXs, it's more like OTC trading and RFQ. And the rest of ecosystem is really struggling with liquidity through this fragmentation. And that basically means that a lot of the time, if people want to actually do trades, you have to just do it on Ethereum because you'll get ripped off anywhere else.
Yeah, makes sense.
And so it's obviously a problem because it means that you want to use the other blockchains to, transact in an affordable way, run your application, whatever that might be. That could be payments or whatever. But then if you ever actually want to do a trade and settle, then you have to go to Ethereum to actually do that. Whereas ideally, you should do it wherever you are. You shouldn't have to bridge to Ethereum to do that. In terms of stablecoin specifically, I think this year is the year of like non-USD stablecoins really taking off.
We did write a report about it earlier this year.
Sorry?
Oh, sorry, that was a quick plug. We did write a report on non-US stablecoins earlier this year for anyone who wants to check it. I'll send it to you afterwards, but continue.
Awesome. Yeah, but I think this is the area I'm really excited about because, we're talking to a lot of different issuers. Because at the moment, I think EURC is the biggest one, and that is like starting to really take off now. But there's also other Euro stablecoins that we're talking to. I saw you were talking to Financial, obviously. We've been talking to them as well. TGP is a UK one that we're talking to a lot.
Of course,
I'm working
we
with.
know them as well.
We're working with issuers for a Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar, and a few others. And so I think all of these are going to need markets, right? For the most part, they'll probably start with against USD, but then I think a lot of them will be markets with each other as well.
Yeah, of course.
And so I think basically this is the market that we need to kind of not just capture, but also help create in the first place. Because there isn't that much on, a lot of it's on centralized exchanges, and we want to move that on chain because
and to be able to go directly between them or any non-USD ones and kind of have those those markets exist already. And then I guess one last question, like where do you see most of the institutional volume coming from? Is it kind of payment processors, market makers, treasury desks, or somewhere else kind of entirely?
Okay. I would say it is mainly payment processors right now. Like people like MoonPay, for example, they do a lot of on-ramping and off-ramping and payments and that kind of thing. And then at the end of the day, they need to like settle their daily exposure and basically do conversions and also maintain their liquidity across multiple chains so they can always do on-ramps and off-ramps. That requires a lot of cross-chain swaps and that kind of thing, which at the moment for and a lot of others is really expensive or just timely. And I've talked to people where they literally say they'll do like a trade into one token and then put it onto a centralized exchange, have to wait like 30 minutes before that settles, and then offload it from the centralized exchange, paying some outrageous fee to another chain. And that's the only way they can do that, which is just like outrageous. It should, I would say.
Yes.
And so basically, I think that market is where a lot of it will initially start. Ultimately, obviously, we hope it literally becomes like institutional FX, not just for like crypto payment apps, but for just anyone who wants to do FX coming on chain. Because that would be the fastest, most efficient way to do it. Obviously, I think we're a long way off from that now, but we are working in that direction for sure.
Makes sense. And then, yeah, you're working towards building out all those aspects and connecting all these different markets. I guess zooming out, if we were to kind of catch up in a year and a half, what do you expect kind of the stablecoin liquidity landscape to look like by then? And how does that pan out with where you expect your roadmap and success for Superset?
Yeah. Okay. Well, at the moment, stablecoin liquidity is like 99% USD, which does not reflect actual trading rates in the world. And so I would ideally like to see the on-chain, ratio of different currencies to reflect the real world. Obviously, USD Euro is the biggest market in the world. We want that to be the biggest market on chain, but then also like Euro GBP to be a similar proportion to what we see in the world as well. And obviously, like a lot of people who not necessarily even want to be involved in crypto need to understand what a wallet are using these apps just because it is the most efficient way to do a lot of finance. So through abstractions, they might be using Superset to do FX, even though they don't need to necessarily know that it's using stablecoins on this network or another one. It's just the most efficient way to do it. That's where I'd really like to see this going. Also, just like from our perspective, we'd like to be on a lot of chains and have gone beyond just EVM then. So at the moment, we're building like EVM networks, Ethereum ecosystem initially, but we're already working on integration into Canton and then into Solana, and then from there, other chains as well. And so,
awesome.
A
true kind of multi-chain, multi-coin, multi-stablecoin kind of ecosystem. I think what you guys are doing is really important to connect all of that. Just because we are running up on time, I want to make sure I give you also a chance to cover anything that we didn't already cover in the session today that you want to highlight.
Okay. I could have thought about something for this.
You don't have to. If we covered everything too, then we're good too.
I think we covered everything pretty well. I actually definitely should have thought about that. I suppose we'll cut out the bit where I'm just thinking. Ideally.
The what? Sorry.
Well, I'm still thinking. We haven't actually technically launched it. Launching in the next few weeks. We actually delayed it because of a lot of drama in the ecosystem that I'm sure you're aware of.
There's been some
security and that kind of thing. So what am I announcing? Maybe we'll just leave this bit.
Yeah, we'll leave it. That means we covered everything we needed to cover. Yeah, not a problem at all. It's just in case we didn't. But awesome. No, this was super, super helpful. I think, I really appreciated having you on from the technical side as well to kind of go deeper into how you guys are, making this all possible and bringing all these markets together. So thank you so much for taking the time today. And I hope we chat again very soon.
Yeah, thank you, Paula, for having me. That was really fun.
Yeah, awesome. It was fun. Thank you.